Stand, please. Please be seated.
Yes, Mr. Armstrong.
Thank you, Your Honour. Could Mr. Bones please be recalled to the witness stand?
Previously sworn in.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Bones. Mr. Armstrong.
Thank you, Your Honour. Now, Your Honour, immediately before the lunch and adjournment, I think Your Honour took Mr. Bones's notes. Could we ask that at least a copy be provided to him again? Now, Mr. Bones, I had only one last question or topic to ask you about. His Honour has heard evidence that one of the TFS volunteer early responders, Mr. Butler, when he examined the area of the fire of the stump on the afternoon of the 3rd of January, observed that there was a section of root that he could see through a hole on the northern side of the stump and up against the stump that he observed was still burning, and he had a discussion about that route with Ms. Barrett. Now, Mr. Bones, based on your observations through the course of your investigation into the source of the fire that became the Fawcett bushfire, and in particular your observations in the area of confusion, could you please state for His Honour what is your opinion as to the possibility that the fire that commenced in the area of confusion was ignited from a burning route other than the particular route that was identified next to marker 20 in your photographs?
Yes, Your Honour, I believe there could be a possibility that the fire may have extended from another route or multiple routes, given the complexity of root systems in large trees and the size of that tree and the amount of roots in the area. But I'd just like to reiterate that the only fire that was on that property was in the stump identified in the report, no other potential sources of ignition, and no other fires were set on the property.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honour. Nothing further from Mr. Bones in Chief.
Thank you. Mr. Reid.
Yes, thank you, Your Honour. Mr. Bones, Mr. Temponi, could you get up document 78, please? Following that as it's flicked through, the first page is upside down, but I dare say he can recognise it.
Okay.
And if we can just scroll through the document, please. You recognise that to be your personal log sheet for the 6th of January, do you?
Yes, I do.
Now, is all of the handwriting in that yours?
On that page, yes. Yes.
And
yep, that's all my writing.
Yes, well, there's none on the 3rd page, but yes. Thank you. Yes, I tend to that. Now, did you keep a personal incident logbook to give it its full name for the 5th?
No, I did not.
Is there any reason for that?
To explain the situation, we were asked by the ICC through District Officer Mark Klopp to attend the scene. We attended the scene on the first day. I didn't really see a need to have a logbook in relation to the actual fire investigation itself, as we take photographs and also take notes at the time in relation to locations of items, etc. So to answer your question, no.
Could the witness please be shown document 127? Now, you recognise that to be a fire investigation report for the fire at Repulse Dam.
Oh, yeah, that's correct, yeah.
And you completed that report.
Yes, I did.
And in fact, you completed your investigation of that immediately before coming to the Fawcett fire.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, if we could go please to page 702. And you'll see there that there's what appears to be a pro forma. Please indicate yes or no for the following fields. Incident field notes completed and attached. Now, what are they?
Well, they can be several different things. We have, for the first responding brigades, red folder that we call incident field notes, and that's primarily for capturing information in relation to what we call our AIRS report. Every time a brigade attends a fire, for data collection, they have to do what's called an AIRS report, and there's some specific questions and fields in that report. And also in that booklet, there's a section on recording information for fire investigation purposes to pass on to the fire investigator when they come on scene.
Now, if the witness could be shown document 24, page 0057. Perhaps we better go back to the first page where you identify the document for the witness. Sorry, Mr. Tempone. You'll see this is your Dunalley Road fire and Fawcett fire report. If we go to 0057, please. Now, you'll see that there were no incident field notes completed and attached. Does that mean both? There were no incident field notes to your knowledge completed and obviously not attached, but that's the case.
Yeah, that's correct. Just hard for me to recollect, but obviously I've put no on that document there. In relation to gathering information from this incident, there was...
Sorry, Mr. Bones, I haven't asked you about that.
Oh.
I've asked you whether there were any incident field notes completed and attached, and you've answered that no.
Not in the same context. Sorry, can I expand on that? Is that okay? Just not in the same context as the other one for the previous fire up at Repulse Dam.
Well, I think your question was why not, wasn't it?
No, well,
Your last question.
I don't believe it was, but I'll run with it. Why not?
Yeah, so in relation to this particular incident, when I attended, I had police, I had the firefighters at the front of the fire trying to extinguish the fire. So contact with them was quite difficult. I had some phone conversations and arranged for police to take witness statements from those people with some specific questions around what they did and what they saw. So that's why I didn't have any real field notes. The only real notes that I had on the day, I believe I had a copy of the fire investigation report that I'd scribbled some bits and bobs on, and also the incident notebook on the first day.
On the second day?
On the 6th.
On the 6th. Yes.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
It may not have been your question, Mr. Reid, but it might have been the question I anticipated that you were going to ask.
Well, Your Honour, I'll take Your Honour's lead, or I did take Your Honour's lead. Now, the incident field notes, I think I understood your evidence, could include, in certain circumstances, notes made by the first responders.
Yes, that's correct.
And there were none of those?
Not that I was made aware.
Objection. No notes or no first responders?
Oh, come on. And there were none of those, were there?
I didn't receive any field notes from first responders.
Yeah, sorry, yes. Yes, no one gave you any. Thank you. Could the witness please be shown document 79? You made mention, I think, of this document in an answer or two before.
Correct.
Now, can you, perhaps if we scroll through it first, just so you can familiarise yourself with it, or are you familiar with it?
Definitely looks like my writing on the front page.
Well, perhaps we'd better take it slowly so you can look at it, please.
Yeah, I'm happy for you to scroll through it and confirm at the end if you like.
Mr. Temponi's got the button, so if he's going too quickly for you, tell him, or if you want to sped up, tell him, please.
Yes, that looks like my document.
And all of the writing's yours?
Yes.
There's one page there, I don't want you to be too readily agreeing with me if it's not correct. There's one page, if we just go down, which has a different background on it. Just wanted to make sure that that's the one there. That's, even though it's got a different background, that's still your document.
Yes, it is.
Yes, thank you. Okay, now, these notes were contemporaneous, that is, you made them at about the time that you were doing the various things described by the notes. Is that fair?
Can't really recall when I actually did the notes, but I would assume that I would, as I gathered information, I would record it there and then.
That's your usual practice?
That's my usual practice, yes.
Thank you. If we go back to the top, please. And you accept that the content of that as a contemporaneous or more or less contemporaneous record is likely to be more accurate than your memory some 8 years later.
I would assume so.
Yeah, thank you. Well, now, I think we can leave the first word that you've written. Well, the first word you've written on this is vegetation, and that's because that was the fire that you went to investigate. Thank you. Right, we'll go to the next page. Now, FI is fire investigation.
Yes, correct.
Indicating that you went to a fire investigation at 242 White Hills Road.
That's correct.
Yeah, and you've already explained how the 110 Inhala Road Fawcett comes in, so I don't need to ask you about that. The time investigated, 4:30 on the 5th. Do you remember being in a helicopter on the afternoon of the 5th?
No. I didn't travel in a helicopter on the 5th.
Right. Well, can we just look at that for a moment? There are some photographs we've got, Mr. Bones, that it's said by our index that you took. If we go to 100, document 100, and if we flick through to the fourth document, sorry, the fifth document, rather, the fifth. The fifth. Yep. I just want you to familiarise yourself from there on that these are photographs that you took?
I can't confirm, but on the 5th, that was the day I was there with Tony Johnson and
Yeah,
myself.
yeah.
Yes, I would have taken them, or Tony,
Right. Yes, you or Tony, and with what?
with a camera supplied for the fire investigation unit specifically.
Right. Now, thank you for that. And it was a Canon EOS 30D. Does that ring any bells with you?
I can't recall.
All right. Well, my question might be answered by me checking the next years. Now, if we go back to photograph 4, you'll see that that is an aerial photograph. Do you recognise that, what's shown in that photo?
No, I don't actually.
Right. Photo 3, you recognise that? I dare say you don't, given it's almost identical to photo 4.
Yeah, no.
Right, thank you. Photo 2, again the same answer. Yep.
Yeah.
Now, I'll do this, although perhaps I shouldn't. What about photo 1? Does that help you at all?
No, I'm not familiar with that photo either. That
No.
looks like out of a helicopter.
It looks like what, sorry?
Out of a helicopter.
Oh, I see. Right. Well, now, if we go to, we'll take photograph 1 first of all. Mr. Tempone, can you expose the metadata for that, please? And hopefully this is big enough for you to read, Mr. Bones, but you'll see that it's a device model Canon EOS 30D. Do you see that?
Yes.
With a lens model. And then if we go to photo 5, the Canon EOS 30D and the lens model appear to be the same.
Correct.
Yeah. So it would seem as though the photographs taken in 1, and we'll have a look at 1 and see what was happening there. It's metadata for 1, I think, will show the same camera. And if we just have a look at the time there, that's 3:26 p.m. on the 5th. You see that? Got
Yes, I can see that.
Thank you. Take it slowly, Mr. Bones. I want to be fair to you. Photograph 2, taken 3:36, with apparently the same camera. You see that?
Yes, I can see that.
Photograph 3, taken at 4:20, with apparently the same camera. Photograph 4, taken at 4:20, with apparently the same camera. Now, then we come to photograph 5, and that's taken at 6:56 at the Barrett property. So, I'm trying to help your memory here, Mr. Bones. Do you accept that that it is likely that you did not arrive at the Barrett property until sometime around 6:30 p.m?
My memory can't serve me that well in relation to specific times. Normally I record that detail as I go through the process. Yeah.
Yes. Do you have any explanation how the camera was apparently in the air at 4:20? No, I withdraw that. What's the purpose of taking photographs, Mr. Bones, in a fire investigation?
That's for evidence purposes.
And it's likely that when you arrive at a property and you have orientated yourself, you'll take an orientation photograph.
Not necessarily straight away. The process for investigating a scene is we'll start at the peripheries and walk around, have a look at those micro and macro indicators, following the run of fire to try and determine a potential area of origin. So it's not necessarily taking photos straight away, because you might unnecessarily take hundreds of photos, and so you want to make sure that your photos are capturing things that are relevant.
Yes, thank you. Can we go back to document 79, please? Now, this document, just excuse me, I'll get my own copy up. So, you've noted then the fire investigation officer, and for those 2 days, that notation is complete and correct. That's so? For the 2
correct.
days of the 5th and the 6th?
Steve Walkley wasn't on scene on the 5th.
No, but for the 2 days of the 5th and the 6th, it's complete and correct.
If my memory serves me correctly, yes.
Right. And then there are some police officers who are mentioned, and does that arrow mean that that entry of the 5 police officers is intended to run across police officers, CIB officers and forensic officers?
That's correct.
Thank you. And then we've got the names of Barrett and Robinson and brigade names mentioned. Now, was it your understanding that all of these brigades went to 242 or not?
I believe that, off memory, that they were the brigades that were responded to the incident first and foremost.
Yes, but to go to 242, did they all go there?
My memory doesn't serve me that well. I'm not quite sure if Rainbow did, or Wattle Hill. I believe the other 3 did, they?
So,
maybe the exception of Primrose Sands, sorry.
Yeah. 2 Dodgers ferry units? Is your memory that they both went to 242, or one or neither of them?
I'd only be speculating.
Right. Thank you. And then there's a note about insurance details, and you've got undetermined in there. That's no doubt because you hadn't asked any questions about it.
At that point, possibly not.
Yeah, thank you. Now, then as to fire cause determination, you've got Melissa, more info on campfire. You went back to see Ms. Barrett on the, sorry, I had to pick the date up, on the 16th of January to obtain that further information. Is that right?
I can't be specific on the date unless you have some documents there I had previously. But I know I had been back on the scene before, later on to talk to Melissa.
Yep. Can we just run through to the second last page of this document, Mr. Tempone? And you'll see there, 16th January, 10 a.m, Barry Bones interview with Mel Barrett. So these are the notes of that interview when you were obtaining further information about the campfire.
Correct.
Thank you. Now, we've got a handwritten, I'm sorry, I'll start that again. These notes, did you take them while you were talking with Mel Barrett, or when you went back to the station, or at some other time?
No, I normally take my notes as I'm talking to people.
Yep. And you'd expect that you followed that usual practice?
Correct.
Thank you. Now, if we can just go back, please, Mr. Tempone, to the third page, and then you've got a notation, electricity, and the potential for electricity to be a contributor to this fire was something which exercised your mind at that stage.
Do you mind if I expand on that answer?
Or was it something that exercised your mind at that stage or not?
There are all possibilities need to be discounted when you're doing a fire investigation.
No, Mr. Bones, was electricity something which exercised your mind as a possibility early on?
No.
Why did you make the note electricity?
Just like I tried to explain, when we go through the process of elimination, we like to make sure that we cover all bases. And I was acutely aware that I'd be sitting in court sometime after, and I'd be questioned if I did not cover off on all possible ignition sources on the property.
Now, then you've got observations of responding crew, and you've mentioned Oliver Terenius with a time. That time comes, does it, from the call log, or the incident log?
I would presume so, yes.
Now, you've then noted incident still active at time of investigation, and that's the way you wrote what you've said earlier in your evidence, that the firefighters were off fighting fires and it was very difficult to get to them.
That's correct.
Right. And you then go down, see attached police statements, affidavits and video conducted by forensics.
Yes.
And that's what you've relied on in terms of the responding crew, that material.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, you've got see attached police affidavits, but you've got a couple of question marks there. Can you help us with those, or your memory doesn't persist?
Sorry, I can't help you with that.
Right, thank you. Then we move to weather conditions. Vegetation type. Then you report to date total area of involvement. Of course, you've said, well, it's still active at time. There's a reference to a David Van Gatenbeck. Who is he?
David used to work with the TFS in the capacity of airs reporting and also had access to incident logs through Firecom.
Thank you. And the 8482, is that his number?
That's correct. That's his extension number.
Oh, thank you. Not his. Yes, thank you. Now then you've got grid reference of stump and your two coordinates there, 0555195 and 52604, 48, but you've crossed out, have you, 39?
It would appear so.
And 39 would be about 9 metres to the south of 48. Well, not about, it would be exactly 9 metres to the south of 48. That's so?
Yes.
Thank you. How did you take, well, did you take those coordinates?
I believe I took them from the radio set in the vehicle.
Right, so
it was approximate.
So your, you took them?
I believe so.
Right, and from the vehicle?
Correct.
Where was the vehicle?
Would have been parked somewhere close. Right. So I had access to my tools.
Yes, was it, Witness please be shown document 101. Yes, if we can. Yeah, photo 44. Thank you. We've got. Perhaps I need document 100, not 101, Mr. Tempani. That might be my error there. If we go back to 100, photo 44. Yes. Yeah, you'll see some tire marks to the north and northwest of cone 20, and indeed cone 7. Do you have any knowledge as to how they got there, other than from a vehicle, or when they got there probably? Do you have any knowledge about it?
I do recall seeing them there. I'm not quite sure what vehicle drove over there though, but I do believe they had the track marks from a TFS vehicle.
Right. Right. Now, do they include a track mark from your vehicle? In other words, did you move your vehicle alongside the area to take the grid reference?
Most definitely not.
Right. Okay, thank you. Now the next page appears blank. Then we've got an entry person's information obtained from, and you've got Adam Hall and his number there. And who was Adam Hall?
Brigade Chief at Dodgers Ferry Fire Brigade.
Thank you. And then you've got a grid reference, 555604. Are you able to assist with what that grid reference refers to?
I have no recollection.
Thank you. The next page has on it what appears, at least to me, to be a drawing of an area within the barrack place. You can see the house at the bottom. Can you assist the court with this drawing?
Yes, most definitely. This is the area as described in where the fire originated from, being 29 metres from the house to the point of ignition, 2.8 metres.
So can I stop you there? I'll let you keep going, but I just want to ask about that.
Yes.
29 metres to the point of ignition, is that the cone 20?
Correct.
Thank you. Yes, keep going, please.
And 2.8 metres back to the bottom right is the stump.
So you've drawn there dotted lines. You haven't drawn directly from the point of origin to the stump. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah. Can you ask the question again, sorry?
Yes. You see, you've done some extension lines out from the centre of the stump and the point of origin to put the measurement in. There was no apparent reason for putting that there. You could have simply put the distance in. So I'm asking, what was the reason?
It was just to say that we've measured the distance between the centre of the stump and where we found the root.
Thank you. Now, you've then got, if you can then keep describing, please.
It's hard to remember exactly what I might have been able to articulate. Back at that time, of course, I'd understand what I was drawing, but I'd say from the back edge Well, probably the only thing I could actually comment on would be the width of the fire at 12.5 metres, and I can't really reference why. That's possibly the distance between both driveways.
Can I suggest that the blue dotted line depicts the pink tape that was erected around the area?
That's possible.
Do you think it's probable? It's quite likely, isn't it?
I don't actually remember.
Right. And the black lines depict the pink lines that were drawn by Mel Barrett.
Once again, quite possible.
Right. So if it's correct that the blue dots do depict the pink tape, the depth of the east-west depth of that pink tape was 15 metres and its width was 12.5 metres. That follows, doesn't it?
The arrows match up with the blue dots.
Yeah. So
that's the only thing I can comment on there.
Yes. Well, it follows that if the blue dots depict the pink tape, those are the distances of the pink tape.
One could assume that.
Now, are you familiar with a tree? If we go back to photo 43 and 100, and if we can enlarge that, probably not the best photograph that we can have, but if we enlarge that, please, Mr. Tampone. And you've got your cursor just on the bit that I'm wanting to enlarge, so you no doubt, thank you. You see that tree and the pink tape around it. Are you able, yes. You do, thank you. Are you able to assist with the distance between the stump and that tree?
No.
Thank you. Now, the following page, you've got an entry 242 White Hills Road, and across to the right, camera, photo letterboxes, photo coming up driveway, and in fact you went back and took those photographs. If we can have a look please at 102. You'll see there are precisely two photos there, and the first is, we have a look at what you were going to do, the letterboxes, and it would appear that you've, well, maybe not. And the second one is the driveway. The first is of the letterboxes, is it?
I believe there are two letterboxes on the stump.
Oh, I see. Thank you. Now, we just have a look at the metadata of that photograph. That was on the 16th when you went to visit Mel Barrett. You took those photos, and the camera that it was taken with was, again, the Canon EOS 30D. That's the police issue one that you've been using. Is that so?
Fire service issue.
Sorry. Thank you very much. Fire service issue. That's the fire service issue one. Thank you. Now, then you've got a note for Aurora, line faults, extension, power lines, and then some questions. These questions were those that you intended to raise with Mel Barrett. Is that so?
Correct.
You made a note that you needed to speak with the farrier, and did you speak with him? Ring the farrier.
Yes, I had a phone call with the farrier.
Yes. And you've said, mention defendable space in introduction. What does that note mean?
I believe it was in relation to how well the property had been kept i.e. short grass, around the actual house itself.
Thank you. Now, when we come to the page which is in a slightly different colour, and can you help us with any of these entries? I dare say you'll have to have a pretty decent memory if you can, but let's see how you go.
Yeah, no idea, sorry.
Right. You can probably help a little bit, though, further down. So I'll take that answer to about the end of the potential noughts and crosses field. It's a bit big for noughts and crosses, but we come down to the escaped hazard reduction at 244 Whitehill Road in October, and the call log. You got that call log, did you?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Not sure if this is the same document. Document 90. In fact, I'm certain it's not, but I'll ask you about document 90 anyway while we're at it. That's the primary report for the 244 Whitehill Road fire, even though it says 240. That's so, isn't it?
It would appear that way, yes.
So attend to that.
Well, could you just scroll through, Mr. Timpani, please, to see if I need to read it or not? Yes, I don't think I can. You can tender it, of course you can, but I don't think we can go on until I understand it. I don't know your purpose for tendering it. I haven't read it.
And I don't intend. I got there by mistake, Your Honour. I'll tender it, and there will be some further evidence, and there'll be some further questioning of this witness in relation to it.
Well, then I need to read it and understand it, don't I?
Yes.
Otherwise I won't understand your further questions and the answers to them.
Yes. Quite so, Your Honour. It's just that I'm not intending to ask them immediately.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well, if you're talking tomorrow morning, then there's no need to interrupt the flow of things now. What exhibit number will that be, Ms. Garland? It'll be D16. Okay, well, I can look at that in the morning. Thank you.
Your Honour, I just wonder whether perhaps my learned friend might want to check with Mr. Bones as to whether he's seen that document before. He said he's identified what it appears to be, but it's just not clear whether he's actually seen it. And
Well, it doesn't matter, does it? It's in the court book and the tender can be on that basis. Any further questions would involve him having to establish that Mr. Bones has read it or
please.
understands what's in it at least.
Yeah. Thank you, Your Honour.
Do you mind if I say something in relation to that? Is that okay?
Yes, please go, Mr. Bones.
Just like to say it's actually not the call log. That's an engineer's report.
No,
Yeah.
sorry. As I said, I got there by mistake. It's not the call log. No. So your evidence is that you called for the call log, and while we're looking for it, then I should find it. I had it incorrectly.
It's document 72 or thereabouts.
72. No, that's weather data. Call log. Here we go. No. 69.
Yes.
You recognise that to be the call log?
No, that's definitely a TFS call log.
And that's the call log for the 244 White Hills Road, October escaped hazard reduction. as you've noted in these notes that we're going through?
It appears to be.
Thank you. Well, it is, isn't it, Mr. Barnes?
Well, I haven't really had a lot of time to have a good look through it.
Oh, well, please have a good look through it, because it's important that you help the court to your extent that you can.
From what I've seen, yes, it appears to be a call log.
Well, it is the call log for the 244 White Hills Road, October, escaped hazard reduction, isn't it?
The only thing I'd like to question there is I can't actually see that particular address here. I know the address is 340 White Hill Road. I'm looking at the first entries here, and there's no confirmation that it's 244 White Hills Road.
Right, so you're not sure at all that it is? Is that your evidence?
Without having a good look through the document.
Well, please have a good look through the document, Mr. Barnes.
Could we scroll through to see if we can get a reference to 244, please? After looking through that document quickly at a glance, there's no reference to 244 that I saw on there. But like I expressed earlier, Your Honour, sometimes there are mistakes or mix-up with particular addresses, and I know this might have been the case.
There's unlikely to have been another fire on that day at that time in that vicinity as close as 244 and 340 White Hills Road are.
Mm-hmm.
To your knowledge, was there another fire in that vicinity?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Do you accept that the document that you are looking at is the incident call log for the escaped hazard reduction 244 White Hills Road, October?
Like I mentioned before, aside not seeing the actual address on there, I'm happy with the wording around it. It seems to be like it is the call log from that property.
I'm not sure if this goes to credit Mr. Reid. If it does, I'm not a jury. But secondly, it is the fire investigator incident call log for a vegetation fire at 340 White Hills Road. That's what the document is entitled. You can't force Mr. Bones to accept that it's the incident log for the fire at 244. Although, as I say, it's extremely unlikely that there was another fire as close on that day at that time, and I probably would so find.
Thank you, Your Honour. Is this the call log that you were looking for when you made the note, escaped hazard reduction 244 White Hill Road, October? Is this the one with which you, first of all, were you provided a call log?
I can't recall, but I'm sure I would have been.
Right. And I won't ask the next question. We go back, please, to the document that we were examining. Thank you. Now then there are mentions of Elizabeth Hill and Table Hill. What do you recall those entries related to?
They related to, I believe, a hazard reduction burn on a property owner that got away down Elizabeth Hill. If memory serves me correctly, that was the first one. And then some point later, there was a re-ignition of a tree that fell over and carried some embers to dry grass and restarted the fire again.
At a different location known as Table Hill.
That's correct.
How far away is Table Hill from Elizabeth Hill?
Without referencing maps, I'm unsure. I know that where the fire's finished up, it was 3 kilometres away from 242 White Hills Road. I do recall that information.
No, my question, Mr. Bones, was the distance between Elizabeth Hill and Table Hill, not any reference at all to 244 White Hill. What is the distance between Elizabeth Hill and Table Hill?
I don't know.
Mr. Bones, you're very anxious, aren't you, to bring attribution of this Fawcett fire back to 244 White Hill Road?
Don't believe I'm anxious.
242 White Hill Road, sorry. You're very anxious to bring attribution of this fire back, the Fawcett fire back to 242 White Hill Road, aren't you?
My investigation determined that was the place where the fire ignited.
And it might be natural for you to be very anxious to bring it back, but nonetheless, you're very anxious, aren't you, to do so?
Not understanding the line in questioning, sorry.
Just answer the question, Mr. Bones. You are very anxious to bring the attribution of this fire back, the Fawcett fire back, to 242 White Hill Road, aren't you?
I disagree. I wouldn't say I'm anxious. I would say that I'm just following process and through the examination and the investigation, that's where the fire was determined to have started.
All right. Well, on the following page, you've written, going up Delmore Road, Oliver indicated there was a large amount of smoke coming from a westerly direction. Fire already started. Then there's a note about a previous fire. Were you present during the interview, the video interview that was conducted with Oliver Terenius on the 6th of January?
That was conducted with police?
Yes.
Correct, I was.
Yes. Now, just as to those movements on the morning of the 6th, first of all, is it likely that you made this note at the time of the interview, or is it likely that this note's been made as a result of your later memory of it or of watching the interview?
I can't recall if I actually spoke to Oliver on the phone. I do actually know Oliver. So it was when I wrote this, I couldn't really speculate on that. Sorry.
Okay. Now on the 6th you met at about 10 o'clock at Fawcett, correct?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
On the 6th of January you met colleagues, that is those who were involved on the 6th, at Fawcett, the Delmore Road Arthur Highway junction.
Yes, that's correct.
Right. And at what time, I dare say you can't be precise, but if you can assist, at what time did the Terenius interview cease?
Sorry, I can't answer that question. I have no recollection of the time.
You were present, so what occurred was it that a procession of cars, say 3 or 4, moved along Delmore Road to White Hill Road and stopped at various places?
Yes, I believe that to be the case.
And were you in the same car as Mr. Walkley and Mr. Johnson, or did you have separate cars, or what was the situation?
My recollection is I was in the ute, my work ute, with the police officer taking the video and Oliver Terenius.
Right. And Mr. Walkley and Mr. Johnson were part of the procession, were they?
Yes, I believe so.
Right. Now, then there's a note about a Paul and Eileen Bresnahan. Wendell White. What's that word after the comma after White?
Caravan on White Hills Road.
Right. Can you assist with that entry at all?
No, sorry.
Chopper desk. Firecom tapes names recall. Can you assist with that entry?
Yes, when a triple O call's made, that's recorded by our Firecom people. They have the ability to pull tapes for specific incidents. And on the call log, when people ring triple O, their contact details are recorded.
Did you ever get the tapes?
I don't believe, off memory, I got the tapes, but I definitely had call log.
Then we've got on the following page some notes about Adam Hall and Andrew Dare, who's apparently the Midway Point Chief. Skelly, Assistant District Officer, is that ADO?
Acting District Officer.
Thank you. And a grid reference. Again, can you assist with that?
No, sorry.
Right. You've mentioned flagging tape and droppers. Can you assist with that?
Yeah, that'd be the equipment required to cordon off the area, around the area of origin.
22 Dodgers Hill Road. Does that mean anything to you?
It's the address of one of the witnesses who's given evidence.
Oh, is it? Oh, well, I won't ask in that case if that's so. Then we've got an entry WAC with a phone number.
That's Stephen Walkley's phone number.
Right. Questions to ask? These are questions that you're posing for yourself to ask, are they?
Yes, that would be a fair assumption.
Thank you. You've got some firefighters' names there, weather observations. And we come down to the next page with Brett Smith's name in the top right-hand corner. His relevance, if any?
I don't recall.
Box head maps.
Yeah, that's David V. Gatenbeck's nickname.
And he is a mapper, is he?
He was the person that administrated a lot of our mapping data back in the day.
Right. Got a note, chopper flight for observing Repulse fire tomorrow afternoon, question marks. Do you know when that took place?
No.
No. And further references there, notes in relation to previous fires. Moving down to 30th of November 12, reference to Table Hills. Then we come to Inala Road area of ignition, 3rd of the 1st at 2:13. That's the time of the first call in relation to a fire at 2:42, is it, or not? Don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was around that time.
Thank you. And lightning data to get.
Yes, correct.
Thank you. Then we've got on the next page, Adam Hall, Oliver Terenius, listed names and vehicles first on scene with contacts. First 30 minutes all call. Andrew Magoo, who's that?
He was a district officer at the time, or maybe acting district officer at the time. I can't recall his relevance, whether he was in the incident management team or maybe an on-call DO or something.
IMT access. What's IMT?
That refers to the incident management team that managed the fire.
Where does the word access fit with incident management team?
I can't recall.
Now, we have then, do we, the extent of all the notes that you made?
Repeat the question, sorry.
We have then, we've been through all of the notes that you made, have we? There are no others?
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you. Yes, Your Honour, that's a point at which I must stop. I've done the best I can to that stage.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Walkley, who resides at 22 Dodgers Hill Road.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
well, we'll just have to adjourn early, Mr. Armstrong.
There's another possibility, Your Honour, which I'm told that Mr. Skelly is here. If my friend was happy for me to effectively start with Mr. Skelly, alternatively we can take an early minute today and come back tomorrow.
Look, I'd prefer not to, just for my own benefit. I'd like to lay out the evidence as it's coming.
Certainly, right.
All right. If you like, I mean, if we're under any time pressure, and I don't see that we are, we could start a little bit earlier in the morning, but...
certainly in Your Honour's hands.
Mr. Reid?
No, we're under no time pressure, Your Honour.
Yeah, all right. No, well, I'll adjourn till 10 in the morning.
Well, just before Your Honour does rise, I think I mentioned to Your Honour yesterday about the slight embarrassment I have on next Tuesday, the 12th.
Yes. Is it Tuesday or Thursday?
It's the 12th, whichever day that is, Your Honour. I thought it was the Tuesday. I was wondering, perhaps we might just take this on notice, but perhaps I should say my assessment as well is that we are tracking well in terms of time.
Yes.
And we've now received our learned friends at least draft witness list. And having seen that witness list, quite a few of them are likely to be pretty short witnesses. The sort of length that Your Honour saw with, for instance, Mr. Sward or Mr. Hawke. And so I'm sorry, Your Honour, I'm told that the 12th is Wednesday.
Yes. I'm just conscious that my commitments are on Friday the 14th. So.
Yes, that's right, Your Honour. And so I was going to inquire, and as I say, put this on notice as to whether Your Honour might be minded simply not to sit on the 12th. Of course, Mr. Cox will be here if Your Honour prefers to sit. But I just wanted to raise that as a...
I'm more than happy to, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I've got a considerable amount of work to do for the Friday, and secondly, I'm working on this case as I go along, and it will enable me to catch up. So,
yes.
Mr. Reid?
No submissions, Your Honour.
All right, and I'm assuming that I'm to be provided with written closing submissions in due course, so that'll give counsel Mr Reid at least an opportunity to do some work on that, should he so wish. So.
Yes.
All right, no, I'm
Thank
happy
you.
with that.
If you please.
All right, well then I'll adjourn until 10 o'clock in the morning.
All stand, please. This honourable court now stands adjourned.